Have you ever stopped to observe the frantic flow of things around you and felt that no matter how hard you try to organize your life, there is an invisible force pulling the threads of chaos? It is that persistent, sinking feeling that the world is far too loud, moving way too fast, and that you are always just one single, tiny stumble away from being crushed by the expectations of others or by your own internal failures that seem to scream in the silence of the night. We live in an age of absolute saturation. Our minds are modern battlefields where brands, ideologies, complex algorithms, and endless notifications fight for every precious second of our limited attention. And in the middle of this incessant bombardment, we often feel fragmented, as if our peace depended on an external balance that never quite stabilizes, on an approval that never arrives, or on a financial security that seems to always slip through our fingers like dry sand. Texto Padrone. Imagine, however, if there were a way to become truly and fundamentally unshakable in the face of all this. I am not talking about becoming a cold person, a block of ice without emotions, or someone indifferent to the profound depth of human pain. I'm talking about possessing an internal strength so solid, so deeply rooted in the core of your being, that no insult, no financial crisis, and no tragic unforeseen event could ever knock down your fundamental base. There is an ancient path, carved by centuries of rigorous observation of human nature, that teaches us exactly this. How to transform the mind into a private fortress that the outer world, no matter how violent it becomes, simply cannot plunder. We often firmly and blindly believe that our happiness is the direct result of how well the world treats us. We have been conditioned from early childhood to think that if the traffic flows smoothly, if the bank balance grows, if friends offer constant praise, and if our health remains perfect, only then do we have the legitimate right to be at peace. We tie our joy to 1,000 invisible threads held in the hands of strangers, bosses, governments, or fickle luck itself. This is, in fact, a form of voluntary slavery, where your mood is a mere plaything in the hands of fate. When you condition your well-being on external factors, you are handing over the keys to your mental home to a complete stranger. The massive problem with modern life is not just overwork or constant social pressure. It is a basic error in how we perceive reality itself. We are exhausted because we are desperately trying to control what is, by its very nature, uncontrollable. We spend hours of precious sleep worried about the judgment of people we barely even know, about political shifts over which we have no decision-making power, or about the natural and inevitable process of aging. All these things happen far outside the walls of our true power. The suffocating anguish we feel is born from this total lack of clarity. We do not know where our personal reach ends and where the vast domain of what simply is begins. Think of your existence as that of a lone sailor in a vast, deep ocean without definitive maps. You are there, in your small boat, and the horizon seems infinite in both its beauty and its danger. Suddenly the sky darkens and the waves begin to rise like mountains of dark water. You cannot command the ocean to be still. You can scream at the clouds until your throat hurts and your lungs burn, but the rain will continue to fall exactly where gravity takes it. You have absolutely zero control over the direction of the deep currents or the devastating fury of the storm. If you spend your physical and mental energy fighting the water, trying to stop it from wetting the deck with your bare hands, you will only tire yourself faster and increase the chances of a fatal shipwreck. The sailor's real power does not lie in mastery over the sea, but in their ability to adjust the sails with precision, to keep a steady and calm hand on the helm, and to preserve internal lucidity to make the best possible decision with what nature offers. In everyday life, this means understanding that crises, financial losses, illnesses, and the opinions of others are like maritime weather. They simply manifest without asking for permission. What belongs exclusively to you, what is your sacred and inviolable territory, is the judgment you make about these events and the conscious decision of what to do next. This clear distinction is the only line that divides real freedom from absolute despair. Let's take this into the practice of real life, far from abstract academic theories. Remember someone who really upset you in the last few days, someone who was unfair, rude, or who simply ignored your genuine effort. At that moment, you felt a heat rising through your chest, a sting of anger or a bitterness that contaminated the rest of your day. But stop and analyze it coldly. What really hurt you? Was it the sound vibration of the words that came out of that person's mouth? Or was it the value and weight that you decided voluntarily to assign to them? When you allow someone else's rudeness or ignorance to dictate your mood, you are allowing a hostile intruder to enter your fortress and break your most precious furniture. If you understand that another person's mind is a foreign and confused territory where you have no jurisdiction at all, you will realize that their opinions are just scattered noise in the wind. Why give a complete stranger or even an acquaintance the divine power to decide if your day will be good or bad? By stopping trying to manage the thoughts and reactions of others, you recover a massive amount of psychic energy that was being thrown in the trash. You regain your autonomy. True freedom is not the power to do everything you want, but the ability to be who you are, regardless of what the world throws onto your shoulders. To start building these defense walls today, you need to become an attentive and tireless observer of yourself. It is necessary to create a space, a small but vital interval, between what happens to you and your immediate reaction. When something bad occurs, before letting yourself be carried away by the wave of automatic emotion, take a conscious pause and breathe. Ask yourself with honesty, is this thing happening right now under my direct control? If you missed an important appointment due to traffic, you cannot go back in time and change the flow of cars, but you can completely change what you do with the next few hours of waiting. If you made a serious mistake in the past, that mistake has already become an immutable historical fact. To keep punishing yourself repeatedly is like trying to fight a ghost. You will never win, and you will emerge exhausted. Acceptance is not an act of weakness, giving up, or passivity. It is, in fact, the height of strategic realism. By accepting reality exactly as it presents itself, without the filters of desire or fear, you preserve every ounce of your vital strength to act where it really matters. In your character, in your choices in the present moment, and in the maintenance of your integrity. Everything that does not depend on your will should be treated with a serene indifference, for it can neither add to nor take away from your essential value as a human being. What depends on you, on the other hand, deserves your total focus, your excellence, and your absolute effort. Imagine the sheer freedom of waking up and knowing that no matter what happens throughout the day, your central core will remain entirely intact. If the day brings successes, you will receive them with genuine gratitude, but without becoming dangerously dependent on them for your self-worth. If the day brings losses, you will face them with the dignity of someone who knows that true wealth is not found in anything that can be lost in a fire or a sudden economic crisis. We live in a world that often idolizes fragility disguised as sensitivity. We are encouraged to take offense at everything, to react intensely to every stimulus, and to seek external culprits for every internal dissatisfaction. This philosophy teaches us the opposite path. It teaches us that peace is an internal construction, and that no one can steal that peace from us without our explicit and conscious consent. Every time you feel victimized by your circumstances, you are reaffirming your own lack of power. But every time you take responsibility for your judgment, you are reclaiming your throne. This philosophy is a constant and radical invitation to look in the mirror and recognize that our mind is the only place in the entire universe where we have total and absolute sovereignty. The system around us tries to convince us every second that we are incomplete and needy beings. They say we need more status, more digital validation in the form of likes, more material possessions, and an unattainable beauty to be considered someone of value. But true mental strength is the exact opposite. It is the liberating perception that you need less and less of the external world to feel whole and satisfied. Life is too short and too unpredictable to be spent in a state of chronic anxiety over things that haven't even happened yet, and that may never happen. Most of our worries are distorted shadows that dissipate instantly under the strong light of reason. By focusing on your internal excellence, on being someone fair, balanced, temperate, and brave, you become like a massive and ancient rock in the middle of a restless ocean. The waves can hit with all their fury. They can cover the rock for a moment with foam, salt, and deafening noise, but they eventually retreat, and the rock remains there, unchanged in its essence. It did not move. It did not complain about the water temperature. It simply continued being what it is. We also need to honestly confront our distorted relationship with time. We often live as if we had an infinite supply of tomorrows, postponing our tranquility and our virtue to a hypothetical future where everything will be resolved. We tell ourselves that we will be happy when the debt is paid, when the children grow up, or when the career finally stabilizes. But the naked truth is that things will never be fully resolved. There will always be a new problem on the horizon, an unexpected bill, a family conflict, or a sudden health issue. If you wait for the world around you to fall into absolute silence to finally find your internal peace, you will spend your entire life in the noise, dying without ever having truly lived. The mental fortress must be built now in the heat of the battlefield, and not in some quiet spa after the war is over. Finding calm in the eye of the storm is the great challenge of existence and the greatest reward a human being can reach. This exact second, the air entering your lungs right now is the only thing you truly possess. The past is a static memory that has no power to hurt you unless you provide the knife to it through remorse. The future is a hazy abstraction that has not yet been born and over which you have no guarantees. Your real power resides in the now, in the ethical and conscious choice you will make in the next 5 minutes. Will you be governed by your lowest animal impulses, or will you be guided by your highest, rational principles? Think of those who came before us and faced hardships that we can barely imagine in our modern comfort. Wars, plagues, famines, and tyrannies. What separated those who succumbed to despair from those who maintained their dignity and hope? It wasn't luck, but perspective. They understood that the body can be imprisoned, fortune can be confiscated, but the sovereign will of a human being is an impenetrable sanctuary. You have that same sanctuary inside of you. Perhaps it is dusty from disuse, or perhaps the walls are worn down by mundane worries, but it is still there. Every moment of clarity, every decision to act with justice despite your fear is a renovation of that internal temple. You don't need complex rituals or external approval. You only need your own reason and an unwavering commitment to the truth. In the end, the great and difficult art of living does not consist in avoiding problems at all costs or in praying for an easy life without friction. A life without challenges is a life without growth. A soul that has never been tested and therefore has never known its own strength. The real goal is to transform into the kind of person that problems simply cannot break. It is about changing your internal narrative from being a victim of circumstances to being the protagonist of your own perception. Instead of telling yourself, "This is ruining my life and taking away my sleep," learn to say, "This is rigorous training for my resilience and my character." Instead of asking in despair, "Why did this happen to me?" ask yourself with curiosity, "How can I use this inevitable fact to my advantage to become someone better?" If you change the lens through which you see your daily reality, you change the very structure of reality. Peace is not the absence of external conflicts or the lack of financial problems. It is the constant presence of an internal order that nothing and no one can shake. It is the quiet and unshakable confidence of knowing that no matter what life throws your way, you possess within you the mental tools necessary to process, accept, and act with wisdom and dignity. You are the sole captain of your judgment. You are the absolute owner of your will. Throughout history, we've seen individuals who lost everything, possessions, family, physical freedom, but who remained masters of themselves. They understood that the world can chain your body, but never your mind, unless you allow it. This is the lesson we need to rescue in the chaos of the 21st century. We are surrounded by modern comforts, but we have never been so psychologically fragile. We complain about trivial things while we have the essentials. This philosophy does not ask you to renounce comfort, but not to be a slave to it. It asks you to be ready to lose everything that is external with the same naturalness with which you received it. For if your happiness does not depend on these things, the loss of them cannot destroy you. This is true invincibility. It is knowing that your value lies in what you are, not in what you have or what they say about you. It is walking through the world with an internal compass that always points toward virtue, no matter how strong the magnetic storm around you. Imagine the impact you would have on the world if you were someone who cannot be corrupted by fear or seduced by empty vanities. A person who acts according to reason, who treats others with justice even when it is not reciprocated, and who maintains calm when everyone around them is in a panic. This is not an unreachable goal. It is a daily practice. It is the work of a lifetime. Every time you take a deep breath before responding to an aggression, you are winning. Every time you choose duty over laziness, you are winning. Real success is not what the world sees, but what you feel when you are alone with your thoughts in the dark. It is the tranquility of someone who knows they did their best with what they had and who owes no explanation to their conscience. Therefore, as you return to your busy routine after this deep reflection, take this crystal clarity with you. You are the sole architect of your own soul. Every small time you choose not to let yourself be carried away by impulsive anger. Every time you decide to focus on your immediate duty instead of lamenting someone else's failure, you are laying one more solid brick in the construction of your fortress. Do not wait for a great tragedy or an existential crisis to start testing your strength. Cultivate this strength in the simplest and most mundane moments of the day, in the patience needed with slow traffic, in the calm before a colleague's mistake, in the simplicity of a desire that you decide not to satisfy just for discipline. Build your strength now, while the sun shines and the sea is calm, so that when the shadows inevitably arrive and the winds howl, you already know exactly where to find your internal light and your shelter. The horizon may seem dark and uncertain, and the winds of fate may blow with violence. But inside the secret chamber of your mind, there exists a sacred fire that never goes out. That fire is your reason, your conscience, and your true freedom. Everything else is just passing scenery in a play that will soon come to an end. Keep your helm steady and your mind at peace. Remember always, the world can touch everything you possess, but it can never touch who you decide to be. Your dignity is your greatest victory, and your internal peace is your greatest treasure. Do not give it up for anything. Start now at this very moment to live as someone who truly belongs to themselves.